pillar is entrepreneurship. Just a few sort of house rules. As always, if everyone can kind of keep their cameras off, and mics muted, and if we can put questions in the chat, please, and we'll try and get to them towards the end. There will also be a poll that will go out shortly after Arsalan Saab's talk. Please do give your feedback. It does help us, and we do actually look into that type of stuff. So I'll just get started. So jazakallah everyone for joining. As I said, this is another sort of this is in our series of pillar of entrepreneurship, and today we're speaking with we're blessed to have Arsalan Saab with us, Arsalan Khan, who is the CEO of K4 Group, bringing extensive experience in physical security and modern protection strategies. He does a lot more than that. I've had a brief conversation with him, and I think you'll all enjoy today's talk, and I'm pretty sure Arsalan will bring a lot to the table for you guys. He leads K4 Group, UK-based organization, delivering integrated security, medical training, CCTV workforce, and digital services. He also serves as the board of directors of IPSA, the International Professional Security Association. So without further ado, Sanato Tijarat Talk, and Jazakallah for giving us your time today. And I know you're going to be discussing entrepreneurship and how to sort of grow a business in the real world. And as we spoke earlier, a lot of people are really keen, or they like the idea and the sound of running your own business, and maybe sometimes the complexities around that go amiss. So it'll be really sort of interesting to hear, you sort of go through how to start, the mistakes that those who want to get into entrepreneurship should try to avoid, and more importantly, I suppose, how to build something sustainable and not just profitable. And so, yeah, I'll leave it in your hands, and Assalamu alaikum, Jazakallah for joining us again.
No, Jazakallah, thank you so much for having me. First and foremost, I appreciate it's you have a lot of people to get through. So and thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, that was very nice. Okay, so I kind of gauged, it depends on the audience really, but I kind of gauged who we'll be speaking to on a whim here. So there may be some things that are repetitive and other people may have talked about, and hopefully I will try give a different light to. The idea is obviously a lot of people, or my understanding is a lot of people who are joining this may be new, and kind of looking at where to start off. And I didn't want to go through the absolute basics of, well, set up a company or company house and go down that route. I wanted to be a bit more around practicality rather than functionality. Setting a company's house can be done so via the .gov website or through an accountant, but more so what you're trying to achieve. Now, when I started my career, the only thing I know is safety and security. I started off when I was 16 in sort of the football stadium environment, and that's where kind of I've stayed. Be it when I was working for people, I kind of stepped away, worked at the Met for a bit, and then went back to kind of broader sense of security. But I stayed in the event sector for quite a bit up until I was comfortable enough to step out of it. And this is what kind of goes through is, from idea to reality. And whilst we all have various different ideas, and I think the reality can be sometimes grim, but most of the time it can be so rewarding. But it's up to you as an individual to why you want to start a business. Are you looking for a purpose? Are you looking because you don't want to work under anyone, freedom, be it financially or from management? Or is it you have a passion? Now, one of the reasons I've made a success of my role is because when it comes to crowd management, large management of people or movement of large people, because it's a passion, I've invested a lot of time in learning, in kind of progressing in that field to be a point where people listen to me. So any major large event in the country, there is an involvement from our side or the business. So Department of Culture, I consult with or consult on a regular basis. The Arsenal parade being the perfect example, large scale event on the weekend or this week, and it's a very quick turnaround, mass movement of people into a small area. So I'm passionate about that, and because I'm passionate, I know everything I need to about that topic, and that's the product that I'm selling. Is you come to me, this is what you get, and that's where the business has grown. And what problem you're looking to solve. Fortunately for me, security sector is one of those things that does very well when times are really good, people are having lots of parties, and also when times are really bad, when we're on the brink of a recession, shoplifting goes through the roof, or crime goes up. Security is again looked at. So what problem you're looking to solve, or are you trying to build a legacy? Now, I think Pakistanis or us Asians or even Muslims, we're very entrepreneurial people when it comes to building something. I think throughout history, Muslims are the ones that have gone out, they've built, from beginning of the Ottoman Empire to now. So whatever you're trying to build, it's up to the individual that you are, but you need to know before you begin, before you take those steps, into why you're doing it. And if you're doing it for a quick cash turnaround, then unless you have something that people will pay quick cash for, it tends to end in tears. So I think the first step is be under no illusions. When you're starting a business, it can be rewarding, it can be fulfilling, it can be amazing as independently kind of growing yourself. But as I said, be under no illusions. It can be a very difficult journey, and be prepared to be resilient. Be prepared to fight those battles. Be prepared to have sleepless nights because something hasn't gone to plan, and a lot of the times the risk is always there, but there is reward. So I think that's something you need to maybe think about. Yeah. Can everybody see my screen, by the way? I should have asked this before I began.
Yeah, your screen is sharing.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Zofa. So identify a problem. Now, one of the two case studies, one of the biggest ones that everybody should know, things like Uber and Amazon, and they're sort of the big, massive gigantors that have taken over because they were able to do various different things and around funding and growth and around working with venture capitals or investment firms and build strategies on a multi-layer level. But essentially for you guys, when you're starting off, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? The Fantastic Five, if anybody knows it, it's, what is it that you're trying to solve, or what the problem is, who is your target audience, what or why is your idea different, and how will you make it happen? And it's worth writing on a piece of paper. And I think in school or in colleges, you learn about smart targets, setting a smart target and then breaking it down into sort of chunk bite size that you can achieve. And I think, again, until you take pen to paper and you put your mind to what is it that you're trying to do and how will you do it, and that's the biggest start point. As I said, I don't want to focus on, setting a company and setting a bank account, because that's kind of the easy process thing that happens. But it's what you're trying to do. Why is it different? What is it about you? Because, when I stepped into the field of crowd management or security, there's lots of people doing it. There's no difference in somebody else. The product was me. I had confidence that what I want to do is I want to be the one to bring certain changes in what I see is practical and whatnot around barriers and deployments of barriers. So you need to be confident in whatever it is you believe in, and how will you make it happen, and why is it that you can drive that, and nobody else will. Nobody will wake you up in the morning and say, oh, you got to go to work, or oh, you need to build on this, or you need to work on your idea. It is purely self-driven. And that drive, there's resilience, that grit that everybody talks about is something that you need to have. And if you don't have it, then you need to look at actually where do you fit in. If you're not passionate about whatever you're trying to sell, nobody will buy from you. If you don't believe in yourself, other people won't. So I think the first point is ask yourself what you're doing and then look at where you want to be. Things around competitor analysis, customer demand, marketing trends, and especially with ChatGPT nowadays, it is so quick and easy to do. So quick and easy. And you can identify gaps so quick, but there are other people doing it too. So just be mindful that anything you're doing, there are several other people that will be stepping into that role. Business name, I've seen a lot of people and I helped a lot of people who spent vast amounts of time thinking about the name, the logo. And whilst it is important to you, you can build a brand on anything. You can take anything, any logo, as long as you know how to market it correctly, you can build a brand around it. You can, do merchandising, you can push it out on social media. Building the brand and the logo and the name is the easy bit. Again, it's part and part of making a very simple business plan. Don't spend too much time into, oh, this needs to be absolute perfect, because businesses rebrand all the time. If you are a plumber and your name is Zach the plumber is good enough, because it says what you are and what you do. If you try to do too fancy, then people won't know, the product that you're trying to, give or sell. And have a vision. And I keep talking about this around growth and vision piece, but please do think about your vision, where you want to be and how you're going to get there, because nobody else will. It is you. You're on your own when it comes to stepping into business. And up until you can convince other people, even to be, to go into mentorships, nobody is going to mentor you, because if they feel that you're not worth the investment in time. So again, part of when you're putting together, what is it you're trying to be passionate, be proud of whatever it is that you've got. But these are the very simple sort of 5 or 6 steps in when writing up a business plan: your company name, where you want to be, who your target audience is, what you want to sell, how you want to sell, what the product is, the detail about the product. Is it an app? Is it a physical item? Is it just a takeaway shop? Whatever it is, you need to be detailed, because that is what makes the money. As well as pricing structure, how much. So again, if you're walking into investors, if you're walking into mentorship, you need to understand pricing, because ultimately everybody's in business to make money. And if they can determine that you don't know what you're talking about, you lose face very quickly. So I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was invited to University of West London. They had sort of a Dragon's Den style pitch on, and University of West London does this often because I have a fairly good link there. They asked me to come down for various events. One of the events was this Dragon's Den style, and the students were presenting their ideas, and there were some really good ideas. But the only thing where a lot of people fell down was around pricing. And one of the things that jumped out at me was somebody wrote down all the pricing, and then they wrote VAT, and they put a fixed price on the VAT. And it just gave me a real idea of the person that's presenting this and made this doesn't quite understand the structure of money or taxation. And then when I pressed on it more, and it's not the end of the world, but it's just, have a look, have a think. When you're putting things in, with pen and paper, just make sure they're true and honest. And if you don't know, you can always come back to them. Don't make it up, because if you make it up, it makes you look like a fibber. And if you're a bit of a fibber, then again, it's just that distrust. But yeah, try to be as honest as you can when you're making your business plans. I talk that I won't go too much around how you set up a business, but basics are the company, the bank account, the insurance. Then you come around what you're doing, your marketing piece, your logo, your website, your social media presence. And then it comes around, your CRM systems, marketing tools, data collection, because data is key. Even if you're a high street shop, data is key because who you're targeting, how you're targeting, what they need, when they need it, it is so important. Because you predict if you're a local off license or local corner shop, knowing when you run out of milk and when you need to reorder milk is vital to that ecosystem of that business. Likewise, in any other sort of sector. So, as a business, I know summer for us, for K4, is a very busy time. We have lots of concerts, lots of festivals, lots of football games, rugby games, end of season drama. So all of these things are happening. I know there is a mass requirement for staffing on a national scale. So the recruitment teams in-house, they start prepping for mass recruitments from January. And they've been having interviews up and down the country, 200 people at a time in recruitment sessions because they know at any given time there's a mass recruitment, mass deployment needed. Glasgow Commonwealth Games, again, we were doing a section of it. We know that's the demand and that's what we need to fill because we've gone in and pitched for that. But when you're setting it up, getting the basics right, and it could be as simple as an Excel sheet, but fully understanding what your customer wants before they ask you is kind of the key in all instances with any business. And by having all of these things, imagine like little things like counting software, apart from live reporting and a bit of a need for most businesses over a certain percentage of turnover, having live systems, but accounting software, if an invoice arrives on an Excel sheet or an invoice arrives looking not like an invoice, like scribbled on a piece of paper, straight away the image of your business goes down. But if an invoice arrives professionally from a system with your logo, branding, you've got your footer, you've got your terms and conditions, you've got a system set up that protects you as a business, and don't be scared to enforce your policies. If you have a policy of 7-day payment terms, don't be afraid, oh, well, I don't want to upset the customer, because the customer is used to dealing with other businesses. It's you that's new. So don't be afraid to ring them and say, listen, 7 days are over. Those are our business terms. Do it in a professional manner, but have those systems, but do not circumvent your own systems, because you start to lose control, and you lose control. It doesn't look professional. It looks messy, and people then don't trust you as much. So keep that professional image, have those professional goals within your team and your customers. When you sit down, understand, sometimes customers are friends, but have that professional boundary. Now is friend time, now is customer time. So again, giving you that professional image as a business overall. I touched base on this earlier around how you may do marketing or build a brand, and people buy from people. Networking is so important, and understanding who you network with. You've got local chambers. I think anywhere you live, there's a local chamber near you. You can reach out to them. You don't have to sign up to even chambers to go to chamber events, and you can try them out before going. Don't invest heavily in nonsense networking, because everybody's running a business, and if you're paying to network, sometimes it's okay. You can target who you want to meet, like investment banks or hedge funds or other sort of angel investors, but be very careful when doing that and who you trust with it. But social media is free. Website, SEO, there are very, very cheap packages. I mentioned in a talk before, when we were starting off, we used Yell, and they're one of their smallest packages on Yell, allowed us to get a very good representation online, allowed us to have a brand online, and allowed us to push us out. And cold outreaches, again, part of business is being bold and being robust and all of these things when it comes to being passionate about what you believe in. So cold outreaches, going out, meeting your own customers, knocking on doors, don't be afraid, because if you're not going to do it, somebody else will. A lot of the times people hassle me, and to be honest, up until a point where somebody hassles me enough, because it's something they want, not necessarily something I want, I'll kind of go, all right, you know what? They've knocked on my door 5-6 times. They're here. I'll listen to them. And I know it's not always the best approach, but it is a good approach. Don't be afraid to cold call or turn up to people's offices and ask for times. It is, yeah, people love helping each other. It is human nature to help each other. And if you are genuine, you genuinely believe in your own item or product, then don't be afraid to step into people's doors and ask for help. Other point I wrote about partnerships or doing brand partnerships, it goes a long way. But I think referrals and people that know you, letting other people know, again, part of it. So if you've got social media, you push it out, ask everyone else to push it out, and before you know it, your LinkedIn page might have one person, and you've reached out to all your friends and family and everyone, asked them to like it and push it out to other people. You've gone to a few hundred, and that's very easy. And then it's just keep pushing, keep driving without somebody else telling you to drive, because again, your business, you're in charge, and whatever you do will lead to that business. Either it goes up or down. That is entirely up to you as an individual. So common problems, I think I've fared all of them. I fare all of them all the time. I could have £1 million in my bank account. I will still fear that after payroll happens, what am I going to do? Where is the next set of, if my largest customer goes bust, cash flow for a service sector business like mine, where we are on 60, 90 days payment terms, can be, build or break for us as a business. The other thing is stress. Now, there was a time myself, a few years ago, I put lots of weight on. I went from being a 32, 36 waist, 32, 34 waist, sorry, to 42 waist. I went from a normal large to almost 3XL. And that's because stress contributes hugely to physical problems. And then that's, again, a downward spiral. Once you start getting ill, stressed, you take time away from work, then you get worry and panic about work again. You make it so finding an output. And to be honest, I'm very blessed. I found, going to the gym every morning has helped. So every morning at 5:30, I'm in the gym now for an hour or so before I begin my day. And that helps massively, just kind of that time alone. And the other thing, and I think, again, we are so blessed as Muslim, doing namaz, it helps so much, just that couple of minutes away and just doing a bit of prayers, any problem that you have, any issue, think about, you pray for help. But then there's been times where I'll be praying and I'll be like, oh yeah, I thought something. And then I'll pray on the month, I'll write it down and I'll be like, I need to do this. Or I'll tell my wife, I'm like, get on the phone. So just, yeah, that is, I think, one of the biggest things, because stress can lead to business failure. But don't be afraid to fail, because it's part and parcel of business, making bad decisions and learning from them. It's always great to learn from other people's mistakes, but we are humans, and the human nature is we are stubborn, and we are sometimes a little bit stupid, and we make our own mistakes. But don't be afraid. The more mistakes you make, and if you're lucky, you will learn from each one and you won't make it again. You will recognize, I think if I ask all of you, I'm sure you all know of people, friends or people around you that you've trusted, but you won't trust them again. And you go, well, it was a mistake trusting that person. But that's okay, because you made that mistakes and you've learned from it. And you will now look for the certain traits or markers and go, well, I'm not trusting. Or if you are, you will protect yourself in a way, to kind of go, because you come first. And same thing applies to business. Don't be afraid to say no. If a customer is pushing you into a position that's uncomfortable, say no. What's the worst that can happen? They'll pull their work. It's not the end of the world. But if you say yes and you fail, or you say yes because you feel you've been pressured into it and it doesn't go well, the customer will still blame you. So either way, you're at a loss. And that's happened to me, where I've tried to do my best or bend over backwards and gone against my own policies, against what I would normally do to satisfy a customer because they've asked, for help, and then been the one left holding the pieces because the customer has gone, well, it's your fault. So yeah, lots of things. Staffing, I think I was discussing earlier as well about managing people. People are people, and everybody has different priorities in life. They will never have the same priorities as you. It's definitely staff that you work with or employ. They're people. They do weird and wonderful things. We all do. We all have different drives, different passions, different reasons for what we do, and just understand that everyone has their own limit and everybody operates in their own way. What, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, is important that you identify people's strong points and you work with them. You understand their weak points. You understand, say, for example, I have somebody that is very good at problem solving, very good in reading large scale documents, and I have somebody like this within the business, but their timekeeping is terrible. They can't get anywhere at least 40 minutes late, So I recognize this, and the role they fit within the organization is not very time sensitive, but it is driven. They have their attention to detail is immaculate, but they're all over the place when it comes to getting somewhere on time. So understand people and understand everybody's different. You can't be upset with them, but you can lay out what you want from them. You lay out KPIs, key performance indicators, and you lay out targets and you measure them. You check them and you identify where the shortcomings are and try work with them. And never have self-doubt. Always believe what you are and what you're selling and what your product is, it's you. So whatever it is, be it, as I said, a shop or an app or a service, it is you. And you need to believe in yourself and go, I can do this. Around the world, everyone's doing business on different things, but there's competition against everything. So don't be afraid in going, you know what, I can do this, not a problem. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to run along. Things I've talked about, again, discipline. No one's going to drag you out of bed and tell you to go to work. No one's going to tell me, even a customer, no one's going to go, Arsalan, you're not on time, you're not getting paid today. But why do I do it? It's that self-discipline. It is that, one, I do feel burdened with everyone that we employ. That is my responsibility to make sure these people still have a job 6 months, a year from now. But also the self-discipline, the everyday consistency of going, I need to be in a place that 1 year from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, the people that rely upon the business, the brand, they're looked after. So my drive is that, and you've got to, adapt, being adaptable to change your scenario. As I said, my sector is very adaptable when people are having fun. So beginning of last month, the national threat level went up a gear. We went from substantial to severe in the national threat. We had to change how we do security on some of the central London office buildings. We had to relook at the plans, high-rise towers. We had to relook at how, in case of emergency, adapting is part of life. Right now it's hot. We're adapting to the heat from last week when it wasn't so hot. So yeah, it's part of life, and just patience and resilience. I've talked about grit a lot, and never be afraid to ask for help, ask for advice, ask others around you, knock on doors, and don't just give up. Give it a go. That's kind of the main point. I talked about smart targets earlier as well. Write things down, make a point on what is it that you want to do, measure it and how you're measuring it, the time scale, all of this, and take responsibility. If it's your business, ultimately, if the business fails tomorrow, nobody will go, oh, you know what, I've got a senior management team that costs me in excess of around £250,000 a year, but they'll go, it's not that. It is Arsalan, it's his business, it's his responsibility. So be it small or large, it's always the person that leads their heads on the block. So be mindful, take responsibility, but be willing to lead. Don't just quietly stand to the side. And I said I became what I will say, kind of well known within industry within my sector around crowd management because I'm willing to learn. Every day is a new learning day. I mean, for example, again, Martin's Law is a new legislation or protection of premise and public premises act. Um, but every day is a learning day, and you've got to, if you are arrogant or you are too big-headed to learn, you will lead to mistakes that are irreversible. So be adaptable, be humble, and continue learning. And always, people will always criticize you. Understand where they're coming from. Sometimes you might go, "Oh no, it wasn't me," but understand, their point of view may be slightly different to what yours is. So understand their point of view. Take the criticism. Sometimes go back and ask, why do you feel that way? So you can understand, and always, always, always try to improve. Right. So that is a little bit around what I've wanted to talk about, and I think I come and I'll go through the questions. But essentially, my journey and how I started, I've been very fortunate. Every time there's been growth within the business, we've identified gaps. So we went from being a security business to then doing training because we needed to train good security guys to work with it. And then the training flourished as its own separate entity. Then we started doing all sorts of different courses that are still happening now. Then we thought, oh, actually, events. We were asked for medical, and we started getting more involved in medical. And over time, we acquired ambulance businesses as well as medical cover for events, and then that flourished. So, it's identifying where the need is and moving with the business flows like water, especially ours. And then different sectors. We went from being event security to then getting asked, can we actually do alarm response to a couple of the buildings? And that went from looking after a couple of buildings, opening them up, closing them up, to looking after 9,000 sites just in Greater London alone, where including Battersea Park and all sorts of, opening them up in the morning, locking them up at night. But the business adapted. That arm, the mobile services arm of that, just became a complete different thing, and that adapted. If you didn't go, oh no, we just do event security, we're not going to come lock up your building because it's not an event. And yeah, just being willing to change, willing to learn, willing to recognize and recognize there's different people do things differently, and taking that in. The more you take in, the better you grow. And that's from me. Any questions?
Jazakallah for that. Appreciate that. That was really informative. I think we do.
I've got 10 mates. I'm going to provide security guards. Great. But that doesn't make it a security company, number one. Number two, whilst you can do that, great, do that. But they completely sideline any legal legislation. Payroll contribution, nil. HMRC's taxes, nil. All cash in hand operation. And that's the problem. The problem is a lot of the times the quick cash idea, and it never lasts. It never lasts.
I guess question from me, and then there's a couple other questions as well. How do you what's the difference between persistence and refusing to let go of a bad idea?
Again, it's that feedback, isn't it? It's the idea, and there are times where I'm trying to think about. So even me, like there was an idea that we should own our own radios, for example, and we have a pool of 300 radios. And I kept going back to we should own our own radios. And we tried it once or twice, and keeping in mind something like a Motorola DP series, which is a digital radio, is in excess of about £2,500 a radio. And in the end, after failing twice, because maintaining the kit and everything, and then just it's that learning, it's a recognizing that actually what I'm doing isn't working, and maintaining the radios, getting them in and out of jobs, making sure they are on the right frequencies for the right jobs. It was a full-time operation just for radios, and in the end, I decided to knock it on the head because I decided actually this is not cost effective. It was cheaper to hire a radio at £10 per week, for a job and return it, than hold a pool of 300 radios where we've invested, in excess of 100 grand plus yeah, it just didn't make sense.
And I think that's important. I think that's a key difference between successful entrepreneurs and those who don't quite make it is recognizing, okay, this needs to there's an avenue to push here, or actually now we need to reevaluate. And I think it's about that analysis, that constant business analysis of, okay, where is this going? What does it look like? And what's the, is it actually working out? And accepting that regardless of how many hours and what you've put into it, at times you need to have the ability, and that's where I think some of the points you mentioned about stress and just having that clear mindset, you need to have the ability to say, "Do you know what, this needs to stop here and push on with something else." So yeah, I agree with that. Someone's put, there's a question here about new business venture versus franchising, and I think this again is another important sort of question, because I think often uh, we get into this mindset of we need to come up with the most amazing idea, and that's the only way we're going to be successful in business. But often there are ideas that are already in the market, and if you feel, you can execute something better than someone else, that's okay. I don't think we should be afraid of this copying other ideas or what other people are doing or what is already out there, because I think majority of businesses that do succeed are those that just, you know, have are going on to an idea that's already being executed, and they find a way to do it better, maybe find more margin in that and execute that way. So what are your sort of thoughts around that, and bringing in sort of franchising and the complexities around that too?
Um, we have somebody, Jamaat, that's kind of an expert in franchising. Who
Yeah.
they're on Snaps, and they've been on a few times. I think yeah, the concept of franchising is great if you've got the initial capital, because they will hold your hands throughout, and there are cheaper or more expensive franchises depending on which way you want to look. Right now I think Chaiwala is doing very well, and Amigos I think it's again a franchise which is being pushed out quite aggressively. Um, like anything, if it's your business, you are the person driving it and you're the person taking it to people's faces. And if you believe in it and you have a passion for it, and if you have the drive to make it happen, you can 1000% make it happen. I mean, security companies, there are over 10,000 registered security businesses on Companies House with the SIC code security, out of which 800 of them are Home Office approved, like mine. And if you think about it, 800 companies in the UK offering security, that's more than a couple per per sort of town, or city, sorry, per city. So it's an excessively busy market, but but it comes down to what you believe you can do better, proving that you can do it better, and then showcasing it to the world how you've done it and why you are the person that can do it better. And then that and nobody can beat that. There's nobody that can beat your passion, your drive than you. And as I said, unfortunately, it is that self drive, and the ability to adapt, recognize when you're wrong. And I said, doing namaz is always something that kind of sometimes humbles me a little bit when I silence my brain, and helps me recognize where kind of go, you know what, I need to be doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, grounds you. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, a couple of other questions, but I think this is also important to sort of touch upon with sort of the level of business you're operating. Scalability. Um, Talk a little bit about scalability, and when you think, when do you know a business is scalable, without just, okay, this is bringing me in a lot of money, let's just grow it, let's just double it, triple it, because I think that's probably the normal way of thinking. Money's coming in, just do more of exactly what I'm doing. But is that actually the case, or are there sort of key identifiers that you sort of look at and you think, yeah, this can be scaled? Or some businesses at a certain level do well, you scale too much and they don't do well. So, there are sort of intricacies around that.
1000%. I think, like any business, and this is the downfall, I guess, I've seen businesses where they try to scale up without considering the costs. Remember, if you are a business with 5 employees turning over 1 million, you're expert. To get to the next million, you might need to double up your main overhead, and you need to have 10 employees on other premises. Either you have enough in the bank to sustain yourself till you get to the next million, or you try to stretch your team now. And this is maybe not so nice, but people that you work with are going to be your biggest asset or your biggest downfall. If you can get people to believe in you and turn their lives, and again, my core team, 4 or 5 people have been with me since day dot, the day of our starting, and they will put the business before their own families, which is crazy because I do the same, because the business is also like a little baby that we created, and they believe in anything I say. If I say we're doing something, they will go, right, how are we going to do it? And they will drop everything. They will move, Commonwealth Games in Birmingham was an example where we didn't initially sign up to do anything. And then last minute, I said, right, we're going to do it. I spoke to the Department of Culture. We agreed about 300 staff per day. And then I turned my senior management, the guys and girls that have been with me since day one, life hell. I said, right, all of us, we're going to Birmingham. And they said, what? I said, yeah, we're going to Birmingham. We're going to get some hotels sorted, logistically, move 300 people about, hire out. We hired out Britannia Hotel in Coventry. Not a single person said, nah, you know what, I have a birthday party to go to or whatever. And some of them are females that have got kids, and they were like, right, let's go. And they were in their cars. And a couple of hours later, we were in Birmingham trying to negotiate pricing with Britannia to take over the hotel. So it's just, you need to recognize that not always, if you're scaling, look at the tools you currently have in how you're scaling. And if you're making enough of a sustained margin that you can go, right, I can double my team and still be okay for the next 6, 8, 12 months, then only then look at, making that decision. But it's important to have enough money in your back pocket to go, if it doesn't work, I'm not going to go bust. I will just lose the money in my pocket, but I still have the core idea. So, yeah.
I think that's a very important point, actually. I think we maybe sometimes pass over the fact that in business and in the lead up to success, there's a lot of people who also put a lot on the line. So this whole concept of self-made doesn't really exist. In actual fact, there's a lot that goes behind it, whether that's family support, financial support, or real people on the ground that sort of are willing to sort of really graft out for you. And I think that's a really important point for anyone who's looking into sort of entrepreneurship or a business, just to make sure you have the right sort of infrastructure and people around you, because they are going to, as you said, make or break whatever it is that you really want to push into. A couple of questions. How can I set up a website for a new business? Is one person's asked that.
There's a million ways. It depends if you want to, how good you are with, or how tech savvy you are. You can log into one.com or GoDaddy. I think are the simplest platforms, and the platforms are very easy to use. Even e-commerce you can set up. The other way is, there are lots and lots of people, even within Jamaat or people that you know around you, that could help you do it. But the most simplest is any online platform. And again, there's hundreds of them, but the two I mentioned, one.com or GoDaddy's, because the ones I've used, they're very simple. They're very easy drag and drop tools. With the help of AI, they've both got pieces, so they're very quick to do. Yeah. Or
And
yo.com, you can see what there, guys.
yeah. And someone's asked, how do we contact you for advice and work, some sort of support?
I think a lot of people have my number. It's in different groups. I'm sure they can reach out to you as well.
Yeah.
You can go to my LinkedIn page, Arsalan Khan. You can find me at K4. Yeah, so LinkedIn, go on LinkedIn. My phone number is there as well. I'm not shy about my phone number. It's just WhatsApp me a message. If because a lot of the times I've missed calls because I'll be somewhere, but I will get back to you in good time. The one thing I will also say is in your support network. So I've been in a very lucky position where my family is very much involved in the business. So the wife works with me, and that's again an instrumental part where if you have lots of pressures, and family life is one of them, and having that support helps. running. Like I don't have to worry about, oh, I need to go get the kids or I need to run around, do X, Y, and Z. It's all, yeah, it's compartmentalized. So if you've got family and friends around you that support you, that is probably one of the biggest things. And like I said, website as well. I'm sure if you reach out to people within your local qiyada, there'll be enough people that can help you with websites because yeah, it's not that difficult to set up. Yeah,
So, one of the main things with setting up a business is obviously having the funding, and so sometimes people need to sort of take, have a a roadmap, and it could take them a few years. And I guess one of the questions would be, what skills in business do you feel are becoming more prevalent and sort of will be sort of that niche or that real requirement over the next sort of five to 10 years? Because
that's a
the
difficult
face
one.
of business is changing, right? Because
Yeah,
entrepreneurship has changed. Tech has massively changed everything, right? The access to like someone's asked about a website. You can get a website made within a couple of minutes now. You type it in and it's done, right? So business has massively changed, and so sometimes it does feel like, is it getting harder to get into business, to be an entrepreneur? And so certain skill sets that you would say are vital and sort of up and coming
I think
requirements.
the couple of biggest things is it's that self-belief element, isn't it? It's the element of whatever you are selling, whatever you are doing, whatever you've thought of, be it an invention, an app, or a service, or a product. You are the person driving that, and if you believe in it, and you can show people, everyone around you, and the wider world that this is what you kind of are pushing through, then that is key. That is key. And as I said, like I give you an example of buying computers. Everybody's selling computers. Well, we have a certain person we buy computers from. Is because that person walked in and kind of said, look, I will look after you and I will make sure anything you have, we will take care of you. Same with, so be a small thing as an internet service provider, for commercial businesses, is that relationships that build, and if you build those relationships and you get into doors, you knock onto doors and say, look, I'll be that person. I'm going to be that person that won't let you down, will, deliver X, Y, and Z. This is my product. This is the problem my product or my item or my idea is going to solve. This, look, let me show you how it is. And then, yeah, that's it. I think in the world, there are very little things that are being invented as a brand new, thing. I know there is Waymos are being driven around London as a autonomous self-driving car, but it's one of those things where unless, yeah, it's you, it's that self-belief, the confidence, and the grit to kind of go how you're doing it and understand people and be humble. Be humble and just be like, look, people will give you time of day.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be afraid of market change. And,
Mm,
we've always seen that there's always technology coming in, and it's a little bit of a scaremongering as well, but don't be
yeah.
afraid of that. Embrace it, if anything. Um, One thing I quite like what you said in the beginning, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs will sort of resonate with this, is you continued your kind of day job as you were building. And I think that's very important for entrepreneurs or those looking to go into business. They don't jump the gun too early, Um, be aggressive in your mindset and where you want to go, but be careful as well. Be prepared to put in the grit and juggle and get under that pressure in the early days to really drive it. But don't lose your stability for a dream until that dream really does start to become a reality for you. And I think that's very sort of good advice. Um, yeah, purely for time reasons now, I think that's been great, Jazakallah Arsalan. We are. There's another question here. I think that might be interesting for people to hear. Do you provide security for UK Jalsa before we close?
No. Jalsa is all done by volunteers. I mean, I was involved with Emir Fakr Khan Saab a few years back in the beginning, and I've done bits. I mean, we have done bits at Islamabad, but no, it is purely I give my time and much like every other Khuddam, help out, but no, it's not a commercial. Jalsa security is not commercial. It is done by volunteers.
Exactly. Yeah, and just closing it off there, just a reminder to everyone, Jazakallah for joining, and next week please join us again. You know, we have our pillar enlightenment, where we'll have a talk for you there. But Jazakallah, Islam, for your time and your valuable sort of input into that, and yeah, congratulations on your success as well, and your operations, and may Allah bless that and continue to grow. Um, Unless there is anything from yourself, I think we can close it there.
Thank you, Jazakallah for time. I've just sent the PowerPoint through to everyone as well, if anybody wants it.
Excellent. Jazakallah. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Saga.